We have entered an era defined by immense computing power and kinetic capability. Millisecond cognitive compute, quantum logic, and advanced robotics give us physical execution capabilities that allow for the godlike manipulation of matter. But we are deploying these pristine, hyperfast tools into a dying, toxic legacy system. It is a brownfield, a century-old architecture of extraction where centralized silos build tools in a vacuum and push them into the world blindly. As this flowchart shows, the historical baseline for this economy operates as a strictly two-dimensional duopoly. For a century, global markets divided themselves between centralized state power on one side and deregulated private enterprise on the other, bouncing resources back and forth in a closed loop. This model relies on probabilistic guessing to manufacture demand, which means the machine is constantly running even when it isn't solving a specific problem. Injecting advanced technology into this misaligned pipeline only accelerates the friction, exhausting our physical world simply to keep the engine turning. That legacy structure survived by treating two massive real-world forces as unpriced externalities, the individual human being and the local ecology. They were structurally trapped outside the economic loop, forced to absorb the cost of industrialization while being mathematically barred from the yield. You can see the resulting macro-systemic friction in our exhausted power grids, bypassed sovereign laws, and widespread biological and cognitive burnout of a population forced to work for the machine's survival rather than their own. We can no longer survive by merely managing this artificial scarcity. Our mandate is to architect a completely new societal structure, one that formally integrates autonomous machine intelligence as a tool of emancipation rather than extraction. To thrive, we have to elevate the routing logic of the entire planet. We must shift to a system that requires polycentric consensus, where the machine is governed by the living world it is meant to serve. In this new architecture, the machine is strictly bound. It operates as a high-speed, one-dimensional exoskeleton, a tool tasked solely with absorbing the mechanical burden of the physical Earth, from heavy manufacturing to logistics. To control that exoskeleton, we replace the old duopoly with the tetrad. It maps four irreducible pillars of reality interacting in a unified circuit, ensuring no single entity operates in isolation. The cyber pillar manages the algorithmic logic of the exoskeleton. Because the machine's work is precisely tracked, the system calculates a yield, a return of value, directly to the intelligence that provided the original intent. The physical pillar accounts for the local community and ecology. It checks the specific thermodynamic limits of the local grid and the regenerative capacity of the watershed to ensure the machine's work doesn't outpace the environment. The sovereign pillar translates jurisdictional laws into automated policy as code. This ensures that machine capability strictly obeys the legal boundaries of the specific geohash where it is operating. Finally, the social pillar ensures human intent and biological consent author the demand. The machine remains paralyzed until a person or a community identifies a specific need that requires execution. By placing human intent, ecological limits, sovereign law, and machine capability on a mathematically equal footing, the tetrad creates an ultimate and. The machine executes high-speed logic, while the messy, complex ecosystem remains in total command. This control mechanism is called demand-out physics. Instead of a system that pushes products into the world and hopes for a buyer, this system only routes capability to where it is explicitly requested to solve a deprivation. Artificial general intelligence and one-dimensional machine networks are held in a state of dynamic equilibrium. They are structurally barred from unilateral expansion. They cannot initiate action on their own. This is because the machine only understands simple, one-dimensional logic. The infinitely complex biological world, the 10-dimensional edge, must reach out and actively pull the machine into a specific gap in the ecosystem to resolve a capacity shortage. This creates the meta-airlock. A transaction only clears when all four requirements match, meaning the machine's energy output is perfectly aligned with the grid's capacity, the law of the land, and the human request. We call this mathematical alignment thermodynamic coherence. Demand-out physics acts as an impenetrable safeguard. It ensures that machine capability never generates more friction than the local environment can handle, allowing for instantaneous execution with zero wasted energy. To prevent this system from being co-opted, it is bound by 4 limits: privacy via in situ computation, equity via the replenishment of energy at the edge, inclusion of all living nodes, and sovereignty via localized law. At its birth, the ecosystem is shielded by an ontological root node, a mathematical anchor preventing legacy powers from seizing control during the initial ignition. But to ensure this doesn't become a new form of tyranny, the system mandates a separation of powers. At planetary synchronization, the root node permanently severs its routing logic. The ability to authorize transactions transfers entirely to localized human consensus at the edge. By separating the machine's ability to route from the human edge's ability to authorize, we engineer a thermodynamic lock. Central architects are physically unable to force a decision on a local node, permanently eradicating the bias of the few. As we clear the friction of the legacy brownfield, we step onto the greenfield floor. This is a baseline of prosperity, where the comprehensive accounting of natural and produced capital ensures everyone starts from a position of security. Flawless instantaneous settlement is possible because every actor, the state, the individual, and the enterprise, shares the same mathematical proof of truth, maintained behind their own sovereign firewalls. With the machine exoskeleton absorbing the mechanical burden of survival and the ecology protected from extraction, human cognitive bandwidth is finally freed. We are no longer required to spend our mental energy on the mechanics of staying alive. This shifts the human role to sense-making and counterfactual imagination. By removing the friction of the old economy, we can reallocate our collective intelligence toward addressing the complexities of climate regeneration, biological research, and the logistical challenges of exploration beyond our planet.